back to the questions. What's being done to improve our school systems? That's a pretty broad question.
This is a broader question, and you can, best avenue for this is you have a similar forum with the superintendent, and she could talk in more detail about specific plans as it relates to the Board of Education and direction what they're doing. What we are trying to do from a city standpoint is complement their efforts and recognize that as we grow as a city, that there is needs for additional schools and infrastructure. So we are working with the private sector, the development community, in order to incentivize them to build more infrastructure in order to alleviate the pressure from growth. That's really where I view my job ultimately in this being directly, as opposed to, I can't tell you from an education standpoint, the nuances of what the superintendent's day in and day out objectives are by school. That said, we also are expanding the after-school programs. We've done that quite significantly in order to kind of hopefully keep kids in the schools longer. And hopefully that helps some of our crime issues and challenges on that front. We've also expanded our summer youth hiring program. We started that in 2013. It is gradually built every single year along with the waterfront and some of the corporations on the waterfront. We have close to 1,000 kids from the Jersey City Public School System that we hire every single year to work both in the corporate community and in city hall capacities and in street cleaning capacities. So they get exposure to every component of it. So that's kind of what we're doing from the city standpoint in partnership with the schools, particularly around youth. I would urge you to have the superintendent here for something similar for those of you that are interested in that front.
When are the abatements, especially on the waterfront, going to cease? As they may be good for Jersey City, but since the counties and schools do not share in the abatement funds, our taxes keep on being increased due to the increase of the county school budget.
Okay, so the school, let me say a couple things on this. We have been gradually trying to fade out, taking this step back further. In 2013, I was very clear about what we wanted to do on the tax abatement front, about how we wanted to phase it, how we wanted to structure the program, make it more transparent, and clearly identify areas of the city to incentivize development that people would know what they do and what they get. That's where we came from ultimately. That's what we executed on. We wanted to incentivize people away from the waterfront, which for the first time in 30 years you are seeing construction happening in Journal Square. I would say a lot of that is because of the policy that we put in place, and then at the same time gradually phase back the time frames on the waterfront. We had been doing that as well. Maybe not as quickly as some of you would want us to see, but we have been doing that. This week, as a matter of fact, we broke ground on the largest building in the state of New Jersey. It will be the largest, the 6th largest building in the entire country. It is close to the waterfront. That was done with no tax abatement. So we're gradually moving in that direction, and we recognize kind of where we are. This is not something that started with us, but it takes time to correct those, and I think we're moving in that direction.
Thank you. Here's a more specific question that you can probably redirect pretty easily. How do we go about getting crossing guards at our schools? This is specifically for it starts at 93 Nelson.
The Director for Public Safety was ultimately responsible for it, Jim Shea.
Crossing guards to schools is nice and easy. Whatever, not to get them, to start the process. Whatever intersection you think they're necessary at, let Captain Martinez know. We have a lieutenant who is designated as the citywide crime traffic lieutenant.
Why are you thinking with all these police officers around me? Why are you thinking? Why do I not want to say at the
Okay, so we have a lieutenant who is designated as our traffic lieutenant. That lieutenant, Lieutenant Crowley, will come up.
I am
when
going
he does
already.
this. He watches
But
the
you are
intersection
corrupt
for about a
mayor.
week. And he counts the number of kids crossing, and he counts the traffic, etc. And then we'll decide if it's conducive for traffic. We just hired a bunch of traffic school crossing guards, and we're always eager to put them where we need them. So thank you. Just get the Edgar, give him the intersection. We'll respond, and he'll give the report to Captain Martinez to get back to you.
And thanks once again to Captain Martinez.
I don't think he's a voter for me. Anyway, what do we have next?
You're going to love this one. Why are the Heights treated differently compared to downtown and other areas of Jersey City?
All right, let me take a step back on this because let's recalibrate that conversation a little bit, because I think there's a couple important things to look at when you look at that conversation overall. I see that every single day, that people like to say, why is this area treated differently than that area? Why does this area get this and this area doesn't? Which is categorically not true. And I'm going to drill into that a little bit more. But if you, the lifelong residents, which there are many of you in this room, go back 20, 30 years, the worst place to live in Jersey City was downtown. You all know that, as a matter of fact. And so when you all say today that this is some glamorous place that happened overnight, it takes time and it takes community involvement and some economic factors, and things gradually change. If you do not believe us, let's just take a second. If you do not believe us on where our priorities lie and where we are investing resources in, all you need to do is look at our budget. If you don't believe me, look at our budget. Look at where we are directing resources on parks, where we are directing resources on infrastructure, and that should give you a picture, ultimately, on what the city is trying to incentivize originally. You all looked at that tax abatement program as an example. It's clear as day in there where we're trying to incentivize people, because it's skewed away from the waterfront. So I tell you that you don't have to believe me, but I would tell you to look at facts when you actively look at this stuff and actually gauge where are they spending the money from a city standpoint. Don't just say what you see, look at the papers actually on the city budget, and you will see where our priorities lie. And then it's as simple as that. That rhetoric of always pitting one area of the city against another area of the city is tremendously counterproductive for everybody in the city. We're not going to change the sentiment overnight over here on that, but I would push back on that aggressively because it just isn't true, ultimately.
I thought you'd enjoy that question. This is from Mo Kinberg, D10 Democratic Committee member. As you know, many of us in the Heights are working hard to attract and promote small locally owned businesses in the Heights. I was pleased to read that Jersey City is going to award its deposits to banks that are committed to Jersey City residents. Do you have plans to encourage banks to serve the Heights to provide more support for small businesses in lending? And could you talk about how existing and aspiring small businesses in the Heights could access microloans and resources through the Jersey City Fund?
The Jersey City Fund is run through the Economic Development Program. It's a $10 million revolving loan focused on small businesses. If you have a question or you would like to apply for resources, you can email, again, your council person, us in the RRC, the Economic Development Corporation. There's a lot of avenues to go down, but we are focused on that. We have led the state of New Jersey in small business, small job creation, all of those components. We are leading the state of New Jersey. That is indisputable, ultimately. But again, it may not happen fast enough, but it is happening and moving in the right direction. Again, thank you. Somebody's begging, yes. All right? If you want to access that dollars or those funds, it's very simple. Go to the EDC. It is a board listed on the website, and they have the Jersey City Fund, which is a small business revolving loan program.
We live in the Garden State, but our neighborhoods do not have access to healthy food options. What's the city doing to make our residents healthier?
Stacy, you want to come up here?
Sure.
This is our Director of Health and Human Services, Stacy Flanagan.
Actually, a lot of people in this room are a large part of building the culture of health in Jersey City, and I'll tell you a little bit about the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant that we have in partnership with the Parks Coalition, the NJCU team, the Medical Center at Barnabas, and the Housing Authority and the Health Department. And so we embarked in October on a planning of the plan, which would be a 3-year blueprint for whatever the community really wants or needs. And this team, so there's 5 people on the team from those 5 organizations that I mentioned, are kind of developing a survey and a list of stakeholders. So over the next 3 or 4 weeks, each team has 10 stakeholders. Those stakeholders will get a survey to kind of really think about some of the health and health policies that we've been talking about, integrating some of the master plan with some health planning. A lot of that, from my perspective, because I came from a food access space, I've been trying to lead them in that way, and they tell me that, that's not where the plan's going. The plan's going wherever the people want it to go. So there's going to be a series of community meetings between March and May In May, we'll have sort of the first tier of our blueprint for Robert Wood Johnson that would then give us some funding, about $135,000 that we would match with some other health funding, which this past week we just got a collaborative grant with the United Health Foundation, working with the Medical Center and the New Jersey Healthcare Quality Institute to sort of additionally add to that coalition. And so that coalition is just going to kind of listen to the people, figure where you are, and move forward in that direction of sort of building a healthier Jersey City. From the space of food access, in November we kicked off a Hunger-Free JC plan. We're going to meet again at the end of this month. We've worked pretty hard with a lot of the players in this room, Mark, Mo, Pete, Nick, Adopt a Lot programming to grow more food, more money from Horizon Foundation to put more energy into earth boxes in the housing authority, advancing some of the farmers market monies, a Wholesome Wave grant to double your SNAP monies at the food locations, particularly the farmers markets. And this year we're hoping to embark on the Veggie RX program, so a prescription program to incentivize all of you to maybe go see your doctor, talk to a nutritionist, and get an incentive to go to your farmer's market. So that's what we're kicking off on Saturday at our farmer's market managers meeting. So.
Thank you. Here's a very vague question here. Explain your thoughts on the reval.
Okay. Two points on that. First of all, for Stacy, she worked very hard. We're leading the state on the, we try to hit every bucket of category of people, regardless of their economic background, recognizing that we can't fix it all overnight. Whether it's leading the ACA sign-ups for affordable care, getting people enrolled in that, and leading the state of New Jersey on that. Whether it's Let's Move, the initiative from the president that would give you standards and rate you. We are leading the state on that front as far as activity overall. Farmers Market, we've expanded those throughout the entire city with partners in this room. Also, all of those farmers markets now accept vouchers to provide for both seniors and low-income people. So both of those are happening as well. And then, of course, I would go back to, you just need to look no further than the bike share program on healthy living, things that we're trying to encourage. So there's a lot happening on that front. On to the reval. He showed me the question over here, and I said I'd like to talk about that because I think it's particularly important. Not everybody agrees with my position on it, and I could certainly relate to that. But I believe that this reval started in an improper way, and as a result would be the most disastrous thing that would happen to residents in Jersey City. I would take a step back and start why I believe the way it was done was improper. Let's start with the fact that the business administrator who was responsible for the reval, the individual responsible for the head individual in the city giving out a $3.2 million contract under the previous administration, gave out the contract, then immediately went to go work for the reval company. That is a major conflict of interest right out of the gate, ultimately. Secondly, if you believe, which is a possibility, that this reval would be a good thing for you, right? I would tell you two things that are really, really important. Number one, the reval was supposed to be delivered to you by the previous administration, by the Healy administration, in 2013. And then they miraculously delayed it. It was all in the newspaper. Now you take a step back and you say, if this was a good thing for you, if this thing was going to be helpful for residents, don't you think it would have been done before the election as opposed to after the election? 3, I would tell you, look no further than calling your friends in other cities that have gone through this. Go call Passaic, call Patterson, call Hoboken, and you will realize that there are plenty of people that taxes have not gone up marginally. They have doubled, they have tripled, and people who have been lifelong residents will lose their home. Now, even people who argue with me saying that this is ultimately necessary, this is an important thing, don't dispute the fact that long-time residents will be penalized and your taxes will go up the most. That is indisputable, ultimately. Now, look, most of places go through a reval when development stops and cities stop growing because the tax discrepancy is very large. Jersey City doesn't have that problem ultimately today. And so my belief, ultimately, is that putting you through a reval is going to be one of the most harmful things that the city can do to you. Those of you who remember what happened in 1988, 89, 90, when this happened, certainly remember the torture that many of the residents went through. So here I am saying, and I said this to the Ward E people last week, people can say for political reasons whatever they want, and they could stir the pot all day. In a year and a half, when I stand re-election here again, I will tell you unequivocally that I go to sleep very well at night knowing that I did right by you. That the fact of the matter is that I know that this policy is ultimately protecting you. People could say I'm wrong. I am telling you, find some place that people say this is a good thing, ultimately, by and large. Now, people will make the argument, let's go one step further. Some people go up, some people go down, and some people stay the same. So that's the argument that people make. They look at that only from a residential component. There is a shift that happens before that in residential. There is a shift between commercial and residential. That's the first shift that happens. Then within the residential bucket, some people go up, some people go down, some people stay the same. But it doesn't mean the shift between residential and commercial is equal. So you all, or many of you, can get hurt. Now let's say hypothetically that you believe that you are in one of the winner categories, that your taxes are going to go down. Okay? Your taxes could go down $300, $500. Let's stretch $1,000. I don't believe that, but let's say a stretch $1,000. Your taxes will go down. And so you are one of these people that is buying into reval. Let's do the reval. Let's do the reval. Here is what I believe. And ultimately, I guess we'll see this when it plays out over the next couple of years on how this ultimately happens. If, let's say hypothetically, taxes on Hamilton Park, somebody there is paying, let's say, $11,000 or $12,000 in their house in Hamilton Park. And let's say that residence goes from $12,000 to $30,000. That's what's going to happen there. I think people kind of acknowledge that fact. So if that house in Hamilton Park, right, which used to sell for $1 million with taxes at $12,000, now we have taxes at $30,000, I think we all agree that that house no longer sells for $1 million. The price comes down because the taxes go up. That's basic economics. We all kind of agree on that. Now ask yourself this. If you can buy a house for $800,000 or $700,000 in Hamilton Park, right? You're close to the path, you're close to that area down there, close to the mall. Let's say you could get it for $300,000 cheaper, $200,000 cheaper, because taxes are so high. If you could get it there, do you really think that you living in Hilltop, that you living in the Heights, you living in Greenville, you living in Country Village, that your house won't be impacted? Do you really believe that if you can get a house cheaper at another place in the city, that domino effect doesn't go through the whole city? I would argue to each and every one of you, and I guess we'll see, that you may be $500 richer in your pocket on taxes and $40,000 poorer in the value of your home. And for me, it's not a trade-off I'm willing to do when you have a corrupt process that started it on how that contract was awarded. Till the day I die, I will fight on this because I believe I am right and I'm fighting for your best interest on that, I assure you.